The Radical Rebellion of Softness, How Vulnerability is Transforming Black Excellence. Good morning, everyone. I stand before you today with a message that will challenge everything you think you know about strength, power, and success, particularly for Black professionals and entrepreneurs in America. I recently had the extraordinary privilege of interviewing Iteashia Turner, a visionary leader who is fundamentally reshaping how we think about resilience and achievement. Tiasha isn't just changing individual lives, she's igniting a revolution. Her pioneering work on what she calls the soft girl era has sparked a movement that's transforming entire communities, corporations, and institutions across the country. She stands as a beacon of authentic leadership, courageously challenging centuries old narratives about what power looks like, and especially for Black women who have been conditioned to believe their value lies solely in their capacity to endure, to persevere, to be unbreakable. What struck me most about our conversation wasn't just Itiashia's brilliance, though that was undeniable, but how she has created a movement that transcends superficial trends. She's pioneering a profound spiritual, emotional, and mental recalibration that's especially resonant for high achieving Black women who have spent years, sometimes decades, in survival mode. We live in a culture obsessed with hustle, work harder, sleep less, grind more, push through pain, never show weakness. This narrative is particularly suffocating for Black professionals who face the double burden of systemic barriers while being expected to demonstrate superhuman strength and resilience. But what if everything we've been taught about strength is fundamentally wrong? This is the revolutionary truth that emerged from my conversation with Etiasia. True empowerment for Black professionals doesn't come from relentless strength and self reliance. It comes from embracing softness, vulnerability, and community support. Let that sink in for a moment. The soft girl era isn't about weakness, it's about rewriting what strength actually looks like. It's the courage to rest when you need to, the wisdom to heal rather than just endure, the confidence to ask for help instead of struggling alone, the compassion to show gentleness even in the face of adversity. This perspective is radical because it directly challenges the superhuman expectations placed on Black professionals, especially Black women, who have been conditioned to believe their worth lies in their capacity to endure hardship, to never complain, to carry impossible burdens without breaking. The most revolutionary thing a Black woman can do, Etiasia told me, is to prioritize her own healing and rest in a world that expects her to be everybody else's solution. During our conversation, Etiasia shared three transformative insights that I believe can change not just individual lives, but our entire approach to professional development, leadership, and community building. First, embracing vulnerability is not a liability. It's a radical act of self love and leadership that opens doors to authentic connections and sustainable success. When we drop the mask of invulnerability, we create space for genuine relationships, innovation, and growth. Second, community matters profoundly. Building networks of support, whether through mentorships, partnerships, or peer groups, is essential for thriving as a Black professional or entrepreneur. No one succeeds alone, despite what individualistic success narratives might suggest. And third, healing powers progress. Prioritizing mental health and emotional well being isn't a luxury or a distraction. It is the fuel that drives creativity, innovation, and long term achievement in business and leadership. These insights might sound simple, even obvious, but they represent a profound departure from how most of us have been taught to think about professional success and personal strength. Let me share some compelling evidence that demonstrates the power of this approach. Consider the story of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's work with Black led educational organizations. For decades, these organizations labored in the shadows, forced to prove their worth through extraordinary grassroots impact before gaining recognition from mainstream philanthropy. They operated in constant survival mode, stretching every dollar, working beyond exhaustion, proving and reproving their value in a system designed to overlook their contributions. Then something shifted. The Gates Foundation took a different approach. They provided targeted funding specifically for capacity building, empowering Black leaders with resources tailored for their communities. But more importantly, they created spaces where these leaders could be vulnerable about their challenges, could admit when they needed support, could prioritize their own well being alongside their organizational goals. The results were transformative. Grantee organizations reported increased sustainability. Several launched new programs serving thousands more students. Many secured multi year funding cycles, expanded their staff, and broadened their reach into underserved districts. One leader shared, "For the first time, I felt like I could admit I didn't have all the answers. I could ask for help without being seen as incompetent. That vulnerability connected me with others facing similar challenges. And together, we found solutions I never would have discovered alone." This isn't just a heartwarming story, it represents a fundamental shift in how we think about leadership and impact. By creating environments where vulnerability is valued rather than penalized, where community support replaced isolated struggle, these organizations achieved more than they ever could through sheer force of will and endless sacrifice. Or consider the transformation at GAF, a major U.S. manufacturer that has invested heavily in developing diverse talent pipelines. Historically, Black professionals at GAF face limited promotion opportunities despite strong performance records, a common challenge across many industries. Rather than simply telling these professionals to work harder or be more resilient, GAF implemented leadership development programs focused on authentic mentorship between senior executives and emerging leaders from underrepresented backgrounds. After internal reviews revealed gaps in representation at upper management levels, the company restructured its talent strategy around inclusion metrics tied directly to executive compensation packages. But the most powerful change was cultural. JF created space where Black professionals could speak honestly about their experiences, where vulnerability was treated as a strength rather than a weakness, where asking for support was encouraged rather than penalized. One participant shared, "I spent years believing I had to be twice as good and never show any uncertainty. The moment that changed everything was when my mentor, a senior executive, admitted he didn't have all the answers either. That permission to be human transformed how I showed up at work and ultimately accelerated my growth as a leader. The outcomes speak volumes: improved retention rates among minority employees. Several program participants advanced into executive roles within 5 years. Diverse hires now make up record percentages across business units. Perhaps most significantly, this model has encouraged other manufacturing firms nationally to adopt similar approaches, broadening industry wide efforts toward inclusive excellence. A third powerful example comes from Minnesota North College, which has reimagined what educational environments can look like for first generation students, including many young entrepreneurs of color. These students often balance work and family obligations with coursework, facing isolation and burnout common among underrepresented groups pursuing higher education and business dreams simultaneously. Instead of simply demanding more grit or resilience from these students, the college launched peer mentoring circles and wellness initiatives centered on mental health and holistic development. They created spaces where students could admit struggles without shame, where vulnerability was treated as courage, where community support replaced isolated striving. One student shared, I was ready to drop out. I thought my struggles meant I didn't belong. Then I joined a peer circle where others were facing the same challenges. For the first time, I realized I wasn't failing. The system was designed without people like me in mind. That realization and the support of my peers changed everything. The results? Higher graduation rates among target populations, approximately a 15% increase over 3 years. Alumni report greater confidence launching businesses post graduation. The college has expanded programming campus wide and received state and national recognition for equity innovation. What these examples reveal is a profound truth. The traditional narrative about success, particularly for Black professionals, is fundamentally flawed. We've been told that strength means never showing weakness, that leadership means having all the answers, that success comes from outworking everyone else. But the evidence tells a different story. True strength comes from the courage to be vulnerable. Effective leadership emerges from building authentic connections and communities of support. Sustainable success flows from prioritizing healing and wholeness, not just achievement and accolades. This is the revolutionary insight at the heart of Iteashia Turner's work. The soft girl era isn't about being weak or passive. It's about reclaiming a more authentic, sustainable, and ultimately more powerful way of being in the world. It's about recognizing that constantly operating in survival mode, always being strong, always carrying everyone else's burdens, always pushing through pain without addressing it, isn't actually strength. It's a path to burnout, disconnection, and diminished impact. True strength looks like setting boundaries without apology. It looks like asking for help when you need it. It looks like prioritizing rest and healing. It looks like building communities of mutual support rather than trying to be a superhero. So I ask you today, what would happen if you allowed yourself to be soft in a world that demands hardness? What might you create if you stopped trying to prove your worth through endless sacrifice? How might your leadership transform if vulnerability became your superpower? I challenge you to make one radical choice this week: to rest when you need to ask for help instead of struggling alone, to admit when you don't have all the answers. These small acts of revolutionary softness might feel uncomfortable, even frightening, but they contain the seeds of a profound transformation, not just for you, but for your teams, your organizations, your communities. Because the truth is, we don't need more superheroes. We need more fully human leaders who have the courage to be vulnerable, to build authentic communities, to prioritize healing alongside achievement. This is how we will transform not just individual careers, but entire systems. This is how we will create workplaces, institutions, and communities where everyone, especially those who have historically been expected to be superhuman, can thrive as their full, authentic selves. The revolution begins with permission, permission to be soft in a hard world, permission to be vulnerable in spaces that demand invulnerability, permission to heal rather than just endure. And that permission starts with you right here, right now. Thank you.